The franchise known as Ys has come a long way over the years and has been a big supporter of handheld consoles. 1 and 2 got released for both the DS and PlayStation Portable, followed by a PSP port of 6, remake of 3, and short exclusivity for its 7th entry. 4 was later remade on the PlayStation Vita in the form of Memories of Celceta, with the 8th entry managing to land 2 handheld releases on the Vita and later the Switch. With the success of the latter entry, Lacrimosa of Donna, the franchise has finally returned to a handheld to give us more of adventurer Adol Kristen. Here is my review of Ys 9 Monstrum Nox for the Nintendo Switch. 9 takes place after the events of 7, making it the furthest along in the timeline. Adol and Dogi reach the prison city of Balduke, where Adol is arrested on the suspicion of his involvement with many strange occurrences over his years of adventuring. Around the same time, he escapes from the prison, but not before a mysterious figure grants him the supernatural power of a Monstrum. This power puts a curse on Adol, trapping him in the city and forcing him to do her bidding, fighting with her other Monstrums against the Nox, evil monsters that are trying to invade the real world. The plot here is interesting for a few reasons. 9 takes the series in a different direction, with Adol being forcibly given these supernatural powers instead of being the so-called chosen one like he has in other places in this world. And there is a big mystery surrounding the Monstrums, Nox, and a hidden plot that is slowly shown to you throughout each chapter. Plus, let's just be honest, the first time Aprilis shows up and gives that speech about smiting the darkness looks and sounds really cool. The story is also fun because you are rewarded for being a fan of the franchise. While you don't necessarily need to be well versed on the series to jump in, many early story bits reference several of the earlier entries, including but not limited to 6, 7, and Lacrimosa of Donna. Not only does this further solidify this series taking place in a single continuity, but it gives you a bit of a background on who is actually aware of the many cataclysmic level adventures that Adol has been involved with in the span of less than a decade. When it comes to gameplay, 9 is an action RPG. Throughout each chapter, you will be roaming around the city, completing missions and tackling dungeons, fighting in fast-paced combat along the way. There's nothing really different about the Nintendo Switch release, though it did introduce a few new things while bringing back some others from Lacrimosa of Donna. One of those new parts is DLC. 9 has a lot of stat-boosting items, and many of the elixirs you can get will instantly level you up. The developers deemed this worthy of the opportunity for DLC boosters. If you so choose, you can head over to the eShop, spend $2 for 6 of these elixirs, or in other words, 6 free levels. Now before we dive into main progression, let's talk about fan service. As I said previously, 9 will reward you for being a veteran player. There are many nods in the plot to the previous entries, but we also have new versions of bosses returning from the older games, namely Ys 1, Origin, and Lacrimosa. As we get to game progression, things are pretty different. In games like Celceta or Lacrimosa, you have an enormous map to explore for the bulk of the adventure. But instead of a giant open world, you work out of a hub city, doing missions and moving to more secluded dungeons as you go forward. You also don't have access to much early on, but it does have some shops, NPCs, and side missions you can interact with and do. This entry also feels more formulaic in chapters, closer to how the Legend of Heroes games work. You begin each chapter by exploring around town and taking part in the side content to build up energy for the Nox gauge. Fill this up and a portal to the Nox dimension will appear, letting you do a defensive battle with the other party members as you keep monsters from invading the real world. These are very similar to the raid battles from Ys 8. You can build a lot of different contraptions to help you like decoys and have to defeat monster waves while protecting an object. However, this is a much better system. I didn't like how Lacrimosa's raid battle system would constantly interrupt you while exploring the big map. 9 has a lot more balance and structure, having each chapter start with you doing those missions and battles around town to build up the Nox gauge, doing the Nox battle at your own leisure, and then doing the chapter's main story dungeon and objective. Speaking of, let's talk about the dungeons and combat. For many years, Ys has been compared directly to The Legend of Zelda. It's been known to use a similar formula, with each dungeon having you earn some sort of ability or key item that is used during said dungeon and boss fight. This is one thing 9 brings back pretty well. Though instead of finding key items, each chapter is centered around one of the Monstrum party members, and when they join you, you gain access to their special power. Whether it is climbing walls, gliding, or seeing through your third eye, it feels very Zelda-like to have this dungeon format. With combat, not a whole lot has changed. You've still got 3 different attack types that are good against different enemies. You've still got abilities and skills you can set to the face buttons, along with gauges that let you build up points for them, but all of that didn't really need to be changed. 7 started this system, Lacrimosa built upon it, and it's a really fun little party-based system that still retains the fast-paced action Ys has always been known for. Next, let's talk about content and length. 9 isn't nearly as long as 8 was, but one run through the story should take you around 20 to 25 hours. Enough to get a good amount of fun out of, but not as much as returning players may expect. Moving on to presentation, we have the game's biggest criticism. Graphically, I think it looks okay. It's not a really big step up or down from how Ys 8 looked on the Switch, though it is pretty clear that we lost a lot of details, especially in handheld mode. But that's just how it looks. Performance is what we need to discuss. Lacrimosa of Dana on the Switch had some performance hiccups, especially in the later areas. 9 unfortunately has a lot of frame drops across its entire adventure. Moving around the city hub drops the frames quite a bit, though the secluded dungeons do keep them a little more stable. Granted, it will seldom drop down to really bad and unplayable levels, but it is definitely in need of some improvement, much like the PS4 version did during its initial release in Japan. That's all I've got for performance, so now let's dive into battery life. On the original and Switch Lite models, Ys 9 gives us a battery range of 3 hours up to almost 5. And on the Redbox or V2 2019 model, it gives us a range of almost 6 hours up to nearly 7.5. In conclusion, Ys has returned to handhelds with its most recent entry that changes things up while also giving fans a lot of love. Now on the downside, the game has some optimization issues that it really needs to fix. But anyone willing to wait or fight through those frame drops will find a fun action RPG that improves upon its predecessor. While I don't like it nearly as much as Lacrimosa of Dana, this is still a good entry in the saga. Reviews to go rates Ys 9 Monstrum Nox for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.